I am Craig Gile. I am the founder and the president of CoolMitt. CoolMitt is a new technology that has proven to be the best way to cool down an overheated body, and also proven to have transformative benefits in a lot of different ways. Athletic training, delayed onset of fatigue for athletes, health, safety, and wellness for industrial workers or people working outdoors. So it literally is like the best way to cool an overheated body, which is, getting more and more in play as the planet gets warmer.
No, I agree, and I've had first-hand experience of utilizing it, and that leads me to my first question. The CoolMitt, as you said, is revolutionizing athletes for heat and to improve their performance, etc. Could you explain the science behind thermoregulation and particularly how the cooling of the palms, the soles of the feet works, just for those that perhaps don't understand this?
Yeah, perfect. Love to talk about that. So this technology comes from a remarkable discovery by Dr. Craig Gile and Dennis Grahn at Stanford University in California. It was funded by the U.S. military, who was looking for a solution for soldiers working in extreme conditions, such as Iraq. So what Gile and Grahn had discovered at Stanford is that our bodies have natural radiators, which are the hairless palms of the hands, soles of the feet, and upper part of the face. The reason that serves as a natural radiator is it has a different arterial structure. So most of our body has arteries and capillaries to veins. The capillaries in between are narrow and resistive, a fixed amount of volume of blood can go through those. In the glabrous part of the body, the hairless part of the body, there are arterial venous anastomoses, or AVAs, that when you're overheated, your body, it's called vasodilation, they open up to form a wider shunt, more rapid blood flow between arteries to veins to the atmosphere. So one thing you might notice, like if you're in bed and you find yourself hot under the covers, you might naturally put your foot out. That's actually your body, utilizing that natural adaptation. So Gile and Grahn discovered this. The military saw that as a solution, funded them, and they created technology to accelerate what your body is actually naturally trying to do. And they've proven that they can cool the body down like well over twice as fast as any other measure. We have all sorts of data how quickly that it works.
Yeah, I see. You have a ton of research that shows how this targeted cooling can improve exercise output up to 200, 300%, maybe more. I believe.
It's crazy, to be honest, and it does belie belief. So when I first found out about it, I was like, this doesn't really make any sense how impactful this can be. But I think as you've seen, and I've seen even on my decrepit old body, the benefits are amazing. So so in terms of like volumetric strength performance, depend upon what you're doing and how long you work with it. But literally we have published studies that show anywhere from 40 to 150% of a group in a published study of increased performance on bench press and pull-ups and dips, etc. The reason that it works that way is if you're exercising to failure, your localized muscles overheat. So before your next set, if you can get that heat out of your body, you can then go do more work on your next set. So again, more and more volume of work, your body has a natural metabolic adaptation, that increased amount of work, and you have these sustainable training gains, which again are they kind of belie belief, but they are legit and seen over and over again by our workers. And the whole premise of it is when heat's a limiting factor in your performance in your body, if you can get the heat out of your body, you're going to then do whatever you're doing next, you're going to do it better. One interesting story, at least to me, about how the Stanford scientists kind of stumbled upon the athletic training benefits of it is they get this money from the military and they have to prove they can cool somebody down rapidly. Step one of that is actually getting someone overheated in a lab environment. So they had a PhD student who was a wrestler type of athlete, could do a lot of pull-ups. So they had him do 10 sets of pull-ups to failure. They had his invasive device measuring his core temperature accurately and dynamically. And so he would do his first sets, do like 20 some odd pull-ups. He'd plateau around 8. They see his temperature rise as he's doing this. They put him on the lab version of the technology they had back then. They kind of see it come down. And then one day, without prompting, after plateauing at 8 pull-ups, he does like 18 pull-ups because he unprompted jumped on the bar and does like more pull-ups. It's kind of eureka moment, like, holy cow, what just happened there? And that sent them down this whole other path of discovery. Again, that's resulted in dozens of published papers and all this, work that we have at CoolMitt in the field with elite athletes and non-elite athletes seeing transformative benefits.
And is it just for the purpose of those that strength train, or endurance athletes can also utilize and benefit from this as well?
Yeah, good question. Endurance athletes absolutely have been shown to have great benefits as well. The premise behind that is, as opposed to like the localized muscles overheating and like the pull-up example I gave, when you're on a stationary bike, or if you're doing like intervals on a track, when you get to exhaustion, your overall core temperature in that instance has risen to about, I'm American, so I'm arrogant, so I'll use Fahrenheit, 102 and a half Fahrenheit. But you get to that level, your body starts to stop sending energy to your muscles because you're overheating. If you can forestall that happening, so let's say I'm on a stationary bike and I can have my CoolMitt next to me, I can work out hard. Do I go to exhaustion? I can kind of like get heat out while I'm doing that and just go harder for longer. Or if I'm doing intervals on a track, between a minute for an interval, I can get that heat out and then do a next better 400, say, if I'm on the track. And then again, shown again that increased sustainable gains in fitness.
Yeah, actually, I experienced this not only in a gym environment, but also doing 1 kilometer circuits running, right. And in between 75-80% all out efforts, I would rest in between, of course, and cool the left palm, and seeing a rapid decrease in heart rate, recovering quite quickly, and then was able to perform at somewhat a reasonably good pace as I did the first pace, and then we're talking 2, 3, 4 rounds. By this point, my experience of that has been proven to be what you're saying, and the research, etc.
Yeah, so that's great to hear. And then like we get that kind of that feedback from our customers or our clients all the time, like elite athletic teams. I tend to be speaking to like the performance coaches or the physios, strength coaches, and they'll they say that they had their athletes in training or in a practice or a game, and they're like they can get this heat out of their body. They just keep going and keep going, and they just don't go to fatigue or failure. So in an athletic world, that delayed onset of fatigue benefit allows the athlete to be freshest and stronger till the end than they otherwise would be. And even this is something I don't actually have data on, but it's kind of known science. If you can prevent from getting overheated, your cognitive ability is going to be better. So as an athlete, say I'm a tennis player, and I can get this heat out of my body sequentially through a tennis match, by the end I'm going to be fresher. For one, my core temperature is going to be lower, my heart rate is going to be lower, and so because of that, my decision making will be better. So in a tennis match, and I'm not sure if you play tennis, but you get lazy, you try to end a point earlier, you don't have the patience, like you're starting to break down. We have seen and been told like it actually helps athletes at the end just make better decisions.
It's coincidental you're sharing that, because paddle is becoming very popular, as you're probably aware. And I have been thinking, again, don't have the data, haven't really experienced it or even asked a paddle player, of somebody that I would know who plays paddle, to try this, but it's actually something that's been on mind to test and experiment with for sure, because in between sets for sure, or in between, I don't know what the verbiage that they use, but I can imagine when they're resting, they could quite simply just cool the left palm. And
well, that's a good point. So and so that there's a relevance to all that, and I've never played padel, haven't been available to me, but do play tennis, and we have pickleball here in the States. But so like I'll give the tennis example as to what's happening there, because absolutely it would help padel on the assumption you get breaks. But so in tennis changeover, you get only if you're a pro, you get a minute and a half in the tournament, because they're on TV timeouts. I think it's a minute for like other competitions. So the beauty of this is that it literally starts working right away. So if you say have 1 minute for a changeover, if the CoolMitt is sitting there, you can slide your hand in it, take your drink of hydration drink, whatever you're doing. I'm not going to pitch any particular product. Like I normally pitch the main one, but through your hydration, it starts working right away. So we have data that shows like in the first minute, your heart rate recovers like about 3 times as fast as it otherwise would. So you have to get this big drop in heart rate. And so as you're going through a match, if you would normally be, having your heart rate and your core temperature rising like this, if on every changeover, you can kind of get a little bit heat out. By the end, your heart rate and your core temperature are, substantially lower. We have data to show that. And so again, you're that much fresher. So although you're not getting fully recovered in that minute, you're getting a little bit of heat out. You're building this thermal reserve as you go through a match. Nice.
Super interesting. I believe pickleball was prior to the popularity of paddle, I believe. But paddle in Dubai is crazily popular. Courts popular left, right, and center. And I know just a few people that would be very interested in experimenting this, actually.
Please do. And weirdly, pickleball seems to be an American thing. for what it's worth, my lovely wife plays passionately, like almost every day, so I know a bit about it. I still have a preference for tennis, but I do get out there and play pickleball, which is fun. But yeah, the paddle seems awesome and not quite as loud as pickleball, which is maybe a benefit.
True. My backstory is what fascinated me about the CoolMitt, and yes, I had a bit of skepticism initially when I first seen the science and research around the bench press, as you alluded to earlier. That's when the first time that I really experienced the benefits of this, because I couldn't quite believe how quickly, I couldn't actually articulate how I was able to perform a second, third set and somewhat feel fully recovered, if that even makes sense.
Yeah.
And talking of skepticism, because as we're both aware that cold immersion, ice baths are very popular for various reasons, especially full body immersion, cold immersion. Do you get anyone that questions the difference between just cooling of your palm or your soles of your feet over full body water immersion? And if so, what's typically your answer or comeback to?
So that's a very good question. So, and interestingly enough, I have not been able to see, I've looked, any like scientific studies that kind of show the rate of core temperature reduction on the ice bath. So we have that data. I would say one thing, like the cold water immersion, generally speaking, is doing a different thing than what we're trying to do. It's trying to deal with inflammation. And generally speaking, unless it's like a medical thing, they're not trying to necessarily get the core temperature down. So we think they're complementary at minimum. So from what Dr. Heller at Stanford would say is cold water immersion will eventually cool your core temperature down. The first thing that happens, though, is your body vasoconstricts because it's too cold. So it does kind of limit your heat transfer. Then it basically overwhelms the system.
Yes.
So our methodology, again, is non-invasive, and I would argue more pleasant than jumping in an ice bath. So it's more efficient right away. So the first, I would argue, and this is quasi-scientific speculation, but the first couple minutes of using CoolMitt is going to be more effective than a cooling or an ice bath in terms of getting the core temperature down, if that's what you're trying to do. And then over time, over 3, 4, 5 minutes, I think the ice bath will overwhelm it. But again, I haven't seen that down. So we're basically more dynamic thermal recovery than an ice bath. Then I could put an ice bath on next to the side of the court side of a tennis match, right? This is easily used, carted around. So we're more available, different use case of thermal regulation, and better able to create all these performance and health benefits in an easy way.
I suppose people would imagine that they could quite simply put their hand in a bucket, an ice bath, and would that do the same? But correct me if I'm wrong, the temperature doesn't have to be as cold as this generic idea with ice bath that it's a one size fits all, where it's 5 degrees or less for as long as possible. Correct me and share, please. What is the temperature that the CoolMitt radiates, and what is it where the benefits start to really be seen when somebody is cooling?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's one of the two questions I always get. And so I'll be talking to somebody and I'll get the response okay, Craig, smart guy, I get that the hands are the best radiators, but let's put my hand in a bucket of ice. That'll be faster because it's colder than this cool system you have. So for better or for worse, that's not the way the body works. So if it's too cold, you vasoconstrict. So it's actually counterproductive if you put it in too cold.
And super painful.
Yes, and it's also painful. So it's not only ineffective, it's painful. And we're the beneficiaries because the founding scientists are part of our team of what they've learned over time, and they basically discovered that there's a threshold by which it won't work. So it's called vasoconstriction. It's roughly 10 degrees or so for most humans. So 10 degrees Celsius. Through years, they've dialed in what is an optimal temperature range. It's about 13 degrees Celsius for what it's worth. That will will prevent the vasoconstriction, but will allow for a maximum temperature differential to pull the heat out of your body. And I'll try to be brief on this, but so the reason our device works so well, again, this delivery mechanism is discovery at Stanford, trial and error, knows what doesn't work and what does work. But you put your hand inside this mitt, as you've seen, and there's a closed loop of water flowing through this system, and it controls the water at the ideal temperature. So my overheated hand goes in this mitt on top of a pad that has water flowing through it. And so, again, at the ideal temperature. So the heat is transferred from the blood in my hand to this water, goes away. So convection is basically taking that heat away, goes back through our system, gets re-chilled at the ideal temperature, and comes back out. So consequently, you have a constant flow of water going across your hand, pulling that heat out, allowing colder blood to flow to your heart, including from the inside out. So the key to all this really is, it's not as simple as putting my hand on a cold can that might be the right temperature. This convective flow, basically the heat being taken away and going somewhere, is the concept that makes it work.
Okay, and I do like the idea of this being a baby initial step towards somebody that might be doing cold water immersion who hasn't done it before, because you're quite rightly, it is physiological, it is also psychological when you do a full cold water immersion, and for those that have done it once before, it can be very challenging, and this could quite easily be a stepping stone towards that. And as you quite rightly said, it's very convenient and flexible, and this is a portable device that you can carry around, and it's something that I found super useful when going to a gym to work out. If it is for somebody that was going to play paddle, it's quite conveniently able to transport that very easily, I'm sure.
Right. So question for you, Joe. I'm not sure if you experienced this, but we get it a lot, and they're actually doing a study around it with Dr. Heller and other researchers looking to do it. We get, and have for a long time, get multiple reports of people just saying, I worked out really hard. I was amazed how much volume I could do. I was fully expecting to pay for it a couple of days later with like DOMS, delayed onset of muscle soreness. And they come back like, I didn't have it at all. And so there is something to that. I'm not going to do reckless scientific speculation as to what it is, but it's consistent that we get that you can actually do all this volume of work, not get the DOMS. You can still have a productive workout, 1, 2, 3 days later that you wouldn't otherwise have because you'd be sore. So there's something going on there. We're figuring out what it is, but we just know that it is a benefit. No,
interesting that you raised that, because yes, I both tested this with traditional weight training and felt exactly what you said. But also I am quite fortunate to have access to devices that focus on the eccentric phase when lifting weights. For instance, typically in a gym, you may be able to bench press, 50 kg, but the research tells us that we should be in theory stronger on the eccentric phase. But thinking about this logically, in a typical gym, you only can lift 50 kg off. You can't stop mid-rep to load up the weight to add more on, that's what you really want to do. So there's devices out there that enable you to load mid-rep, so you can push 50 kg off your chest, but then on the lowering phase, you could probably increase that to, 70, 80 kg on the way down. Where you would think the DOMS would be even more so. But going back to your point, your question, I didn't feel it either after that, after utilizing the CoolMitt. And the CoolMitt was something that was I utilized quite religiously during this phase of programming. At the same time, I was doing pre-cold baths prior to the strength training, but again, I couldn't tell you which had the most benefit, but I certainly did feel the difference and recovery and the DOMS. I was able to train 5-6 times a week, actually, during this 12-week phase that we were doing. And coming back to an earlier point, I'd be very interested.
One thing I interject, 1 second, Joe. One thing I want to make clear to people that see this. This is not like some kind of magic mitt where you can put your hand in it and get magically stronger. It really only comes to work when you work out hard and you get your body overheated or in a heat limited state. Now, so sometimes in the early part of a workout, if you're still kind of like body temperature is cool and your muscles aren't hot or heat's not a limiting factor, people may not see those benefits in the first part of a workout. Oftentimes you do, but sometimes you don't. It's never going to hurt to do it, to be honest. There's no really particular benefit in most circumstances to having your muscles hot. Get to another thing in a second. But so when you get your body in the heat limited state, that's when all this stuff starts to come into play. And it is, again, remarkable, the benefits that people see.
The CoolMitt you mentioned is not specifically designed for athletes. All types of people, all types of walks of people and walks of life can utilize this. You have workers that work in hot climate countries, and I suppose they can utilize it in some way, shape or form. How could everyday individuals, like those managing heat stress for training, we've touched on this briefly, recovering from physical activity, benefit from the CoolMitt? Is it simply they would purchase one and they would choose to take this to the gym with them? It is a portable device, as we've mentioned. Do you mind just sharing, just for the benefit of the audience, how can you create a picture of how one would utilize this device?
Yes. Perfect question. So the device, as you said, is portable and battery operated. It can also run plugged in for what it's worth. So you can carry it around. It's about this high and that wide. The battery can go for 6 hours running continuously. Doesn't have to run continuously. You can turn it off and on. It's going to be at temperature kind of right away. So it really, and sometimes I feel as if I'm saying it's like going to help everybody no matter what, and to some degree it kind of can. But if you're over in an overheating environment, working out, whatever, and you have a rest period to stop, and it's there, you're going to get the benefit. So if you're in the gym and in between sets, you get the benefit. If you're doing intervals on a track and it's there, you can get the benefit. Again, it starts working right away. And if you're a worker and you're outdoors and there's a hydration break, if the CoolMitt's there, you can do both at the same time. It's a complementary recovery for people in extreme environments. So if you're a construction worker in the Middle East, if you are, we have working with companies in the oil patch here in the States, chemical companies, shipbuilding companies are all starting to come to us like they have a problem with their workers overheating. We have a solution. For what it's worth, we have more products in the pipeline now that are poised to be delivered that'll be better form factors for both the commercial market and the consumer market. So we're solving that problem for people. But again, the point being, if you're overheated and you got to stop and it can be there, you can get the benefit.
I was just speaking to a medical doctor that was kind enough to share some of the experiences that he has with runners in particular at endurance events like the Great North Run in the UK, the Dubai Marathon that's just took place, marathons that are done in the hotter climate countries, but that doesn't mean to say that that's the only place that heat stroke can occur.
Right.
And it's becoming more and more important that we start to educate ourselves on the importance and dangers of heat stroke, heat disease, and have such things available for ourselves, because one, it can quite simply save lives, but at the same time help us recover from everyday activities and improve our performance, as you quite rightly shared with some of the studies that you've shared and some of the case studies of people, athletes, speaking and vouching for the benefits of utilizing this.
Yeah, it's a good point. And one thing we need to get traction with, I've had some conversations with people that run events, like ultra marathon types of events. And here in the States, I cannot and do not make any medical claims this will prevent heat stroke. I can rightfully make claims that if you can do this while you're overheating, get heat out of your body, it can help you out, right? For races like a marathon in a hot condition or ultra marathons, the reality is these should be out there as part of the safety measures or re-energizing measures for those events. I'm told, and it does kind of make sense, like the people who are going to win those things are not going to want to stop for even like 30 seconds or a minute to deal with this. But the people who are running it, they'll actually, if they can stop to do this, I'm pretty confident to say that if they do that, they'll actually have a better time in the end by taking the time to stop to refresh themselves, get that heat out of their body, give themselves a thermal reserve to then go farther or faster on their ultra marathon, or whatever kind of outdoor event people have.
Understood. And not sure if it was yourself, but wasn't there an earlier prototype or somebody did attempt where you could just hand hold a cold icy sponge of some sort? I've seen this type of device, maybe, I don't know.
So not ours, although we do have a handheld version that is coming out. Nice. The icy sponge or something like that you can carry. Again, the ice would be too cold. And then again, you need like that convective flow to have the heat go somewhere. So there's a concept like I mentioned, like, putting your hand on a cold can or something, right? It might be the right temperature. The heat doesn't go anywhere. So you put your hand on it, a little bit of conduction transfers heat, but then pretty directly a boundary layer develops and it just stops transferring heat. You'll notice, like, you put your hand on something cold, it feels cold right away, then all of a sudden, pretty soon it feels like normal. That boundary layer has developed, right? So those types of things, will have a brief kind of hacking benefit, but they won't have the full benefit of actually pulling the heat out of your hand and letting that colder blood flow to your arm. Go to our website. There's all sorts of scientific studies, as well as not published but credible data white papers on there, demonstrate exactly how this can happen and what it does for you. So it's CoolMitt.com. If there are any questions, reach out to us on the website, and we can have a conversation, go through it. It is like literally I would argue, a revolutionary technology and solution. Where the social proof we have is, off the charts. We have over 70 pro teams already that are users of ours, are coming back and buying more. College programs here in the States, Olympians, some of the pro teams are overseas soccer teams. You need to get, really it should be with every pro team, because it is like a distinct performance advantage. Right now, people and teams that use it are getting a performance advantage. At some point, it's going to flip to where if you're not using it, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So that's where we're on the forefront of that. And so, yes, all the information is on our website. Reach out to us with any questions. I'm available for chats. So, we're excited, where we are with the technology and the benefits that it can provide people. And it's not just athletic benefits. I don't mean to solve all the world's ills, but I have a good path to solve a lot of the heat stress ills out there for people in any number of ways.
Perfect. And thank you very much, Craig. Really appreciate that and your time.
Thanks, Joe. Pleasure to see you.